Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and anyone anywhere above or in between. This is Virginia, and welcome to my channel. Today I am doing a 50% historic build, 50% pop culture build. I'm doing the Draper house from Mad Men. So this is the home of Don and Betty Draper and their two beautiful children. If you have not watched Mad Men, I'm just going to go ahead and throw it out. There's going to be spoilers in this. The show's been out for a really long time, so get to getting. Watch it. It's fantastic. It's definitely not a happy show, but it can be funny at times. It's great. It's definitely a drama. If you're into dramas, then definitely check out Mad Men. So it is set in the late 50s, early 60s, and it focuses on a man named Don Draper. Don Draper is an ad man. So he works in advertising in New York City, and he is kind of a narcissistic asshole. But it's great. It makes the show really interesting and dynamic. I hate it when you have protagonists of a story that are either really, really good or really, really bad. And I think some people would argue that Don is really, really bad, but I think that he's complicated. And he is definitely not a good man, but he's got issues, and that's great. We love protagonists with issues. So anyway, this build is a classic 1950s style, and when I say it's a classic 1950s style, I do want to note that a lot of people think of the 1950s aesthetic and they think of that like mint green stove and refrigerator and like the white and black checkered floor and that kind of stuff. And that, while that did occur, that's more like if somebody 50 years from now were to look back at today and see like things in like interior design magazines, like if they saw decor in those magazines, that's what they assume everybody's house looks like, if that makes sense. So like that classic 50s look of the mint green and the checkers did exist, but it was not the norm. That's not what normal people decorated their house like. That was more for like magazines and things. Most people had a lot more simple homes and simple design choices, just like today. Not many people have like these beautifully, perfectly decorated, you know, neutrals and blues and all of those classic, popular design choices people make today. But anyway, so this is an actual livable, traditional 50s style. There is some wood paneling, but not an exorbitant amount. The kitchen floor is actually not tiled at all. Well, not checkered tiled, at least. It is a technically 3-bedroom, but one of the bedrooms is a really weird shape, and it's kind of really long and thin. And the reason, like, I didn't mess with it too much because it doesn't really come into play in the show. With any floor plans that you find online, it really doesn't, they don't even touch on it at all, really. So it doesn't really matter. So I didn't fight with it. I wasn't going to sit there and fight with the floor plan over a room that doesn't matter. So I think I end up putting like a treadmill or something in there, a couple things that your Sims can actually use to like build skills. And I was like, that's fine. I know treadmills probably weren't a big thing, especially in home during the 1950s, but whatever. Your Sims will have a good time. So yeah, it's technically 3-bedroom, but it's really 2-bedroom, and the kids do share a bedroom, and then it has 2.5 baths. So it's got a half bath downstairs, which is technically the powder room, and then it has the kids' bathroom, and then an ensuite that is attached to the master bedroom. So there are a lot of occasions where I go in and change the windows, specifically on the sides and the back of the house. Obviously the windows in the front of the house can't really go anywhere, otherwise you would change the entire look of the front of the home, which is the only part of the home that you really get to see from the outside. So everything beyond what you see in the front is kind of just like based on other homes that I saw from that era and like my own, you know, reasoning. I just, you know, tried to decide something that looked okay. But I do end up going and changing a lot of the windows, and they're in the curtains in this build. And as with all my builds, I did have to cut out things. I think I only show one bathroom because you don't need to see, you know, 3 bathrooms being decorated basically the exact same. That's just too repetitive, even for me. So, one interesting thing to note about this build is that I actually finished building it after the new update came down. And so I went in to finish up the last final touches just to upload it to the gallery, and which it is on the gallery. ItsLoolyLoo is my gallery ID. Check it out. Yeah, so I went in to finish it up and I got the update. So when I started finishing it, I got really distracted by all of the new debug items. Hopefully I remembered to cut it out and you don't see me just like messing around with cars and boats and stuff. But yeah, so the update did come out, and I know that the update has been controversial to say the least. Some people are not a fan of the new look. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of it, but I also don't care. I really don't care that much. It takes a lot to like get, you know, my knickers in a twist. I'm a really laid-back person. I do not get heated very easily. I'm really easygoing, and I could honestly care less. I did read that some people were like getting migraines from the new like menu, which is not very cool. So maybe they should, you know, soften down those colors a little bit or something. But as for myself, I really don't care. I'm in it to build cool houses and, you know, try and live my life as a Viking man. You know, that was an interesting thing. The Sims brings out the weirdest parts of people, and I made a comment on Reddit the other day in response to a thread someone made about gameplay and how it, like, I don't know. I was like, it just makes the weirdest parts of them just apparent. Because I'm a woman, and I identify as a woman, and I've never really thought otherwise for myself. But when I play The Sims, I mostly play as a man, and I don't know why. Like, they can be gay or straight, they can even transition sometimes within my, like, story play, but I'm almost always playing as a dude. And I wonder what that says about me. I wonder what your Sims playstyle says psychologically about you. I want to, like, talk to a doctor. Maybe I'll, like, find a therapist or someone, you know, that I haven't scared off and be like, hey, let's talk about The Sims. Oh, really quickly, to the actual build, instead of talking about psychology or whatever I was talking about. A lot of the historic builds I do have those overhanging cabinets that are over the island, and to do that, you see, I just put in a wall and then hung the cabinets and then delete the wall. When I've done this in the past, I have gone in to try and close up the little gap that's kind of in between them where the wall was, but I then decided that it just wasn't, you know, hashtag not worth it. It just wasn't worth it for that little tiny sliver of empty space. So I just leave it there now. But you can, if you want to go in and alt and hold, you know, and try and piece them back together, but they don't snap together if you try and move them. So I just leave them as they are. I think they look good. It does take me a little bit longer than I would like to admit to realize there's no refrigerator in the kitchen, but I do remember it. Don't worry. This flooring, it took me a really long time, and you'll actually see me come back to it much later, because we do have a lot of pictures of the Draper kitchen specifically, because there's a lot of scenes that take place there, but I have no idea what the material of the floor is. Like, the center of the room, that green part, is different than the wood along the edge, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's carpet. A lot of 50s kitchens had a tendency to be carpet for some reason, because that makes sense. But I don't remember. I think I ended up making it some kind of stone but it's like this bluish greenish color. So anyway, just a note about the floor there. So you can kind of see in this house that the like right hand side, so if you're standing out on the sidewalk, the right hand side of the house, the interior is a little more dated, I guess. And when I say dated, it's actually moving more towards like 70s style decor, and away from the like pretty, like a little more feminine, like 50s style. So yeah, this little area, you've got your den or like family room, and then on the left hand side of the house you've got the dining room, and you've got that fancy formal living room, which, you know, it was pretty common in those days, specifically for like middle class, upper middle class families, to have those 2 living room areas, and then 2 eating areas too. You have the like little kitchenette, not kitchenette, breakfast nook, I don't know what you call it, but you have that little eating area in the kitchen, and that's where the family actually eats, and then you have the dining room for company. Anyway, so I did want to talk a little bit about Mad Men and talk about, you know, the characters that live in this house. So again, Don Draper lives in this house, and Betty Draper lives in this house. So they do have 2 children. Don works in New York. He works in Manhattan at Sterling Cooper ad agency. He is the like creative director, so he's kind of the head of like the artistic side of advertising. And he's actually, again, spoilers, but he's actually a gigantic liar. And he is not what everyone thinks he is. He's actually from like a really poor, like backwoods kind of country lifestyle, and he took the identity of a man that he went to war with. So the actual Don Draper died, and then this Don Draper, whose real name is Dick Whitman, I think, Whitman, Dick something, you never forget a Dick. Oh, boo, that was dumb, boo. Anyway, the real Don Draper died, and the fake Don Draper took his name, and it's a big plot point in the show, and a lot of things, you know, you learn a lot about Don, the fake Don, the protagonist Don, through unraveling his story. So I highly suggest that you watch the show. It's really great, and I am going to be doing more builds from the show. So I'm going to be doing some apartments and things. Like, I really want to do Joan Holloway, who is my girl. I love Joan Holloway. She's so sexy. She's so beautiful. I'm like, I want to kiss you and I want to be you. I'm very confused. Or I'm not. Maybe it's a moment of clarity for me. I want to kiss myself. Here we go. I remembered we had the fridge. We needed a fridge. Anyway, so I want to do Joan's apartment. I might do Peggy's apartment. Ooh, and I definitely... Don ends up divorced, and Don and Betty end up getting divorced, of course, because it's a very unhappy marriage, and Don is a cheater, pumpkin eater. And Betty ends up getting remarried, and Don ends up getting remarried, and then they have this, him and his new wife have this epic 70s apartment, like, in the city, and I'm definitely going to do that one because it is right up my alley. You'll know if you watched my last video, which if you didn't, you should check it out. I did Steve Harrington's house from Stranger Things, the last of my Stranger Things builds. But anyway, his house is very mid-century modern, 70s looking, and I was living the whole time. I had no idea I was so into that aesthetic. I mean, I guess I kind of did. Like, I remember when I went off to college, this was years ago. Like, I'm 90. I'm 90 years old, ladies and gentlemen. No, just kidding. Or am I? But when I went off to college, I remember my bedspread was like orange and yellow. It was like this wave pattern. It was like a deep burnt orange and then like a mustard yellow color. And then the sheet set to go on my little dorm bed I got, it was like an olive green. It was like super 70s. And like I picked it up, like the comforter itself was actually my mom's from the 70s. So that's kind of where I drew that inspiration from. But anyway, I guess I've always kind of liked that aesthetic. I was just never really aware of it and how prevalent it was until I started doing Sims builds. And now I'm like, oh, I kind of really like ugly, tacky things. I mean, I always knew that. I always knew that I was like a tacky mess. But I never knew, like I said, how prevalent it was and how strong it was. You know, the tacky is strong with this one, no doubt. Yeah, so here I am doing their walk-in closet. You don't actually see inside. Well, no, you do see inside it at one point, because I think Betty finds like a note or something. You always find out that when your husband's a dirty, filthy cheater. Someone's always gonna find out. I don't know why people still do it. Like, just get divorced or break up or whatever you need to do to, like, free yourself from that relationship. Okay, so here we are. We're coming up on the part where I discover, like, the debug and everything. And I'm honestly interested because I'm watching the playback as I'm recording this, and I'm interested to see if I do cut out my, me going hog wild with all the debug objects. Yeah, on the right there, you see a couple of the things that weren't in there before. There's like an eyeliner pencil that I don't remember seeing. That could have been in there, and I just didn't see it. But yeah. Okay, apparently I did cut it out, so that's good. Here you can see me putting Don's awards because he's a famous ad man. And there you can see I skipped doing the bathroom. But again, it's basically the exact same as the bathroom downstairs. It's got the pink toilet, it's got the pink and this and pink and that. Because, in the 50s, like, the home really was like the kingdom of the woman. She was the homemaker, so women really, were responsible for decor. Men really didn't care that much, or they weren't supposed to care. And if they did care, I don't know, you might get in trouble for being super gay or something, because that's, like, the worst thing you could be in the 50s. Well, actually, there were a lot of things you could be that were not ideal. AKA, you could not be a middle-class white person. All of that was not ideal. Yay, 50s! Isn't it funny when people talk about going back to the 50s, how it was like the ideal time? And I'm like, actually it was like legitimately the worst. Yeah, the aesthetic was kind of cool, and the idea of like a home-cooked meal is all well and good, but when you actually get down to the nitty-gritty of it, it was awful. And like, food was all chemical, everybody smoked, like, kids smoked, everybody was an alcoholic. Everybody was, like, dead inside. There's a reason that housewives were, like, all addicted to Valium. Like, it wasn't because they were happy, or, like, it wasn't because they were weak. It was because they were dead inside. So, all those people who want to go back to the heyday of America, they're just dumb. There we go. I said it. Let's get political. They're dumb. Big old dummies. They smell bad. Wow. This has gone downhill. So here you can see, you saw me, like, on the opposite side, not where the bookcase is, but you see that little long, thin bedroom. I guess you could put, like, Christmas decorations. It's like a storage room or something. I don't know. I guess I could have just cut out the room altogether and just made the hallway bigger. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I'll do that before I upload it to the gallery. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah, so I'm working on finishing up the interior, and I do jump back in at some point, and like I said before, I change up some of the windows, and I change up some of the curtains and things like that, just to make it all flow a little bit better. Even though some of the stuff isn't 100% aesthetically what it was in the show, it just made more sense in the build itself. So you can't make perfect recreations in The Sims because you are limited, This isn't, some kind of 3D design program where you can do whatever you want. Speaking of 3D design program, I decided that I wanted to try my hand at making, like, CC. Because I love CC. I don't use any CC, like, build objects, just because I like to be able to share my builds, and you can't really do that with CC very easily. Like, you have to have lists of all the CC, and then you have to expect people to download all of it, and, like, it's really nice to look at, but I like my houses to be playable as well as being cool. But anyway, I wanted to, like, make clothing CC. I was like, that would be really cool, because, like, I'm a seamstress in real life, like, I sew, I make dresses and costumes and stuff, and I was like, oh, it'd be cool if, like, I can make, like, some of my designs and, like, have them in The Sims. Oh my gosh. Like, girl, it is so hard. Like, I did not realize that I was going to be taking a crash course in, like, graphic design. Like, I'm basically trying to teach myself freshman year of, like, graphic design school. So I started doing some, like, recolors and stuff, like, not messing with the mesh, and that's, like, okay. Again, I'm not really gifted in Photoshop. You know, I don't even have Photoshop. I use GIMP. I'm cheap. But GIMP, by the way, great program. Playing with the debug objects. Anyway. But yeah, I really wanted to do like kind of like decades CC, and I started out doing some like 80s patterns on like some of the base game meshes that I thought were really cool and really fun. But even that is extremely difficult. Like, it's very detail based, and you have to really have a good handle on like layers and like how to like color objects, and you know, like, yeah, layering different textures on top of colors, and then changing the hue to get recolors, and then messing with Sims Studio. Oh, there's just a lot. Like, CC creators are amazing. They're amazing, because now that I've even attempted it, I have so much respect for them. So, if you love CC, you should give them your money, because it is not easy. These people spend a lot of time doing this, and it takes a lot of work, and like I said, it's very detail-oriented work, and it ain't easy. Alright, so now I am doing some of the final touches on the outside. I always kind of, when I get towards the end, I do the terrain painting of like where the landscaping is, and that just kind of gives it a good finished feel. And then I always start out with those big like disc lights to like light up the house as much as possible. And then I'll go in and I'll change the lights out for more period appropriate ones. And then any rooms that are still too dark, I will leave the little saucer lights. I'll just like scale them down really small, just so you can actually see and be able to play in it without it being too bad. But a lot of my builds, I do say to people, you know, you might want to go in and put more lights. I just wanted it to be pretty realistic. This little corner room, it doesn't really have a point. You could probably turn this into another bathroom, actually, now that I'm looking at it. I'm like, this could have been another bathroom, but, I mean, you don't really need excesses of bathrooms, so I made it a little storage area. And here I go, you know, destroying some of the windows, trying to make it fit with, you know, the aesthetic a little more. And when you're doing recreation builds, like, you're always looking at reference pictures, and sometimes you catch things that you didn't catch before. And so that's why there's always this section. I normally don't show this section, actually, in a lot of my builds. I normally just cut this part out totally. But this is like my finishing touches section, where like I go in and I perfect some of the things that I might have overlooked. And there are still things that I overlooked. I'm not going to pretend I'm perfect, but like this is kind of where you take it to the next level and make it like really good for like pictures and to like impress people with your attention to detail. As I've said before, for some reason, whenever I'm recording a build, I like get really antsy. I don't know, I get really weird when I'm doing it. I'm hoping that that will go away eventually, and that I will just, you know, it'll be like building on my own, but we'll see. Alright, so we are coming up to the end of the build. I hope that you enjoyed it. Again, watch Mad Men. It's a great show. I am going to be doing more builds from Mad Men. I apologize that this was kind of a rambling voiceover. It's been a really long week, and I have been fighting with a build that I'm going to be uploading soon, but it's just so massive, and it takes so much research, and I'm really tired. Anyway, I hope that you enjoyed this. Like and subscribe to my channel for more historic and other types of builds, and if you have any comments or suggestions of things I should do in the future, please leave them below. Thanks again! I love you, bye! Run the track!